Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Success Agency, Calexico Financing Authority, regular meeting, a closed session will begin 5:41, Tuesday, March 1st, 2016. Roll call? Yes?
Here.
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 Okay, thank you, Ms. Garcia. The public comments. Not to exceed the 3 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the City Council on closed session items only. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name and the place of residence for the record. While members of the public are encouraged to participate, it is unlawful to disturb or delay the council meeting with personal or slanderous remarks. The City Council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. Please direct your questions and comments to the City Council. I believe that we don't have nobody to wants to talk about that. So urgent to the closed session. A closed session of the City Council, Calexico Community Redevelopment Agency, Successor Agency, Calexico Financing Authority may be held in accordance with the state law, which may include it, but is not limited to the following types of items: personal matters, labor negotiators, security matters, providing instruction to real property negotiators, and the conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation. The closed session will be held in the City Hall Conference Room located at 608 Hiba Avenue, Calexico, California. Any public comment on closed session item will be taken before the closed session. Any required announcement or discussion of closed session items or actions following the closed session will be made in the City Council chambers, 608 Hiba Avenue, Calexico, California. Closed session 1, public employee appointments, Government Code 54957B, title City Manager. So we're gonna go to closed session to close the closed session to 5:43. Okay. Time 6:43. Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, Calexico Financing Authority, regular session open. Call to order.
Mayor Kim?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Castro?
Here.
Councilmember Reyes?
Here.
Councilmember Moreno?
Here.
Councilmember Hurtado?
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor?
Okay, and now the Pledge of Allegiance. Now we can lead Mr. Nana Felix. Brandon Felix.
No.
Okay, invocation, I believe. No. Not in schedule. Closed session announcement, lawyer, Mr. Hargrave.
Yes, in closed session, the City Council voted to continue the closed session until next Tuesday, March 8th at 9 a.m. to interview a selection of the candidates for city manager. So this meeting will be continued, the closed session only, until Tuesday, March 8th at 9 a.m.
At 9 a.m.?
Thank you, Mr. Hagrib. Approval of agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Real. We vote.
Aye.
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 5-0, unanimous. Okay, announcement. This proceeding may be viewed on the City of Calexico website at www.calexicocalifornia.gov the Friday following the City Council meeting. Presentations. Number 2, presentation by Mr. Steve Duquette regarding Calexico Redevelopment Agency Successor Agency budget from 2012 to the present.
Here we go. This working? This one. All right. Got to lean over just a little smidge here to do this. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, City Council, for this opportunity to present this matter to you this evening with respect to an overview of the successor agencies' budgets since the beginning of the wind-down process. As you know, I am your chief wind-down consultant, so I've been involved in each one of these budgets that have been submitted to the state and involved in the process associated with getting them approved and to the extent necessary with respect to implementation to some of them. So if we could go to the next slide, please, Vanna. All right. This all goes back to when redevelopment agencies were dissolved by the state of California. This occurred on February 1st, 2012. That includes, of course, Calexico. So effective on February 1st, 2012, the Calexico City Council became the successor agency. And the successor agency to the former redevelopment agency is a separate legal entity. So it stands alone legally and gives it responsibilities for winding down the affairs of the former redevelopment agency, which includes the preparation and submission of these periodic budgets. Okay, Gabby, next slide, please. To date, the successor agency has filed 11 recognized obligation payment schedules. In this presentation, I'll call it a ROPS or an ROPS, a ROPS, and they are in 6-month increments. So they initially, the state, numbered them by Roman numerals, and I think they realized that was going to become unwieldy. So after the third period, they decided to name them after the fiscal year, indicating an A cycle. The A cycle always means July through December, and a B cycle always means January through June. You can see the long listing there, and included within that is the ROPS for fiscal year 16-17 A and B. There was a change that occurred this last time, and I'm very thankful for it, because simplification is very good, where the state is now asking for an annual or fiscal year budget instead of separate applications every 6 months. Those were a little unwieldy. They were difficult to reconcile going forward. Not impossible, of course, you just needed to do the work to do it. But on a fiscal year basis, that will enable the information with respect to the successor agency items to fit nicely within the overall city budgets to the extent that is done. I would say most of my successor agency clients do it that way, so this is quite a benefit. The first 9 of these ROPS, that doesn't include next fiscal year, that included the allocation of about $10.6 million of redevelopment property tax trust fund money. That's RP, TTF. In the past, when redevelopment agencies existed, that was called tax increment. This is property tax money. It's money that's available as a result of the wind down process so that the obligations of the former redevelopment agency can be retired. And that's the whole purpose of the successor agency, to finish the work of the redevelopment agency. And then once that's done, the successor agency will cease to exist. Now, for this coming fiscal year period, the successor agency has submitted its ROPS for next fiscal year and is requesting approximately $3.7 million for the entire fiscal year.
Do we have that here? That schedule?
I'm not sure what schedules you might have in front of you. Good, very good. Do they have the latest one? Yes. Gabby has indicated that.
Okay, you have the-
I
you have the
understand
12 on
that
top and it's all in the bottom.
you may have some individual questions about some prior ROPS, and I'm glad that I have access to each of them, so I will be able to field those questions at the appropriate time. If you go to the next one, the successor agency, by the way, may only use this RPTTF, this is the property tax money, for approved enforceable obligations. It cannot dream them up. They have to be approved. And enforceable obligations are legal, contractual, or administrative obligations of the successor agency approved by the Oversight Board. And the Oversight Board, by the way, is a group that represents the taxing entities. The city is represented on that Oversight Board. And of course, last but not least, the State of California Department of Finance. Next slide, please. And successor agency approved enforceable obligations are confirmed by resolution. So in the past, and I believe this last time, you received a staff report and resolution for the adoption of that coming ROPS 16, 17, A and B. The Oversight Board also approves the ROPS by resolution. So they, by the way, no other vehicle of approval will be approved by the state. So they have to look at the ROPS and make a determination if it is approvable and that the items on it are enforceable obligations. And then the Department of Finance, their approval of a ROPS is done by a letter. And all of the successor agencies' ROPS have been approved according to that process, which is defined in state law. Next slide, please. And the successor agency may not expend any of its money, including the RPTTF, other funds and bond proceeds. I'll stop right there before I finish that sentence. Other funds would include revenue from rental income, for example. In the case of Calexico, that's exactly what that does include. Also loan repayments. It could include land sales proceeds. That's not the case in Calexico, but it could be that. And then bond funds. And on these ROPS 16, 17A and some prior ROPS, there has been some bond proceeds that have been included for consideration for approval. And so unless authorized by the Oversight Board and DOF, then those funds cannot be used for enforceable obligations. And then unless ultimately approved by DOF, any use of successor agency funding, regardless of the category, for other than enforceable obligations is subject to disallowance by Department of Finance. By the way, that has never happened here, but if it did, and it was sustained, that would mean there would be an obligation that would become due from whichever fund would be responsible for that payment. So that has not happened here. And none of my clients have had that circumstance, by the way. So this is monitored very carefully. And then the successor agency, like in other words, how do you tie it all together, has to report the use of its fundings in arrear on each ROPS in a prior period adjustment form, and that is actually included as a part of the ROPS. You may have noticed that. So what the Department of Finance wants to know is for a prior period, and they look at the period that matches the period you're getting approval for, that was 1 year earlier. So they look at that ROPS and they ask you to report, did you spend the money on the activities you said you were going to spend the money on? And that's subject to audit by DOF and audit by the auditor controller. Ultimately, by the way, there will be an audit that will be conducted several years down the road by the State Controller's Office of all successor agencies, just to do a true-up to make sure that the funding was used in a proper way. We all know this, so it's not a secret. It's not something that's being foisted upon successor agencies. It's something to be aware of, and cities are accustomed to doing annual financial statements, and those kinds of matters are considered by your auditors. So there is preparation already underway and is continuously underway, so that whenever that day comes when the State Controller Office arrives, it will be an easy process of assisting them in looking for that information. So if you go to the next slide, please. DOF has reviewed each of the successor agencies' ROPS, including each of the prior period adjustment forms. So as a result, DOF has confirmed that the successor agency has correctly used its funding on prior ROPS in accordance with DOF's approvals, which are in accordance with the rules established under the Health and Safety Code relative to winding down redevelopment agencies. And that described process is clearly a highly regulated one and does not allow successor agencies to spend funds on unauthorized or unapproved purposes. As I mentioned earlier, if someone were to think otherwise, it wouldn't take too long to figure that out, and there would be some consequences. Next slide, please. And, of course, I know this successor agency well. I'm the one that makes those presentations to your oversight board, and I help staff prepare those ROPS, so I bleed ROPS, actually. And I'm going to say it again, because I think I've said it to you all before. I'm an expert in a dying business, because one day there will be no more ROPS. And frankly, here, I think as soon as about a year from now, I feel confident that we're going to be able to propose to you what is called a last and final ROPS. And once we do that, that will mean that we can make payments on all remaining items based on a schedule. It will list each 6-month period through fiscal year 33-34, which is the last year the successor agency will exist. It'll go out 18 years. It'll be a schedule. Department of Finance will approve it, and the payments will automatically come to the successor agency from the county auditor controller. No more ROPS, no more payments. All payments are made by finance and reported as a part of a true-up process to the county. So I'm certainly looking forward to that for most of my successor agency clients. I have a few that will take a year or two longer, because remember, you have to get to scheduled payments. So as long as there are items that are not scheduled, then it's not possible to have one. On that subject, by the way, I believe at your next regular meeting, there will be an item that will be presented. I believe I'll be here to share with you again. It's called a bond expenditure agreement. And I won't present the item in detail other than to say to you that's a follow-up to ROPS 1617 A and B. And the concept is to transfer responsibility for management of the unspent former redevelopment agency bond proceeds consistent with the contracts and obligations that were entered into at the time the bonds were sold. The city would then be responsible for doing this. And of course, as you know, the successor agency board and the city council are one and the same. They're all of you. So I believe that each entity, the city council and the successor agency, will trust in the process. But why am I saying this? Because sometimes capital improvements take more than just 1 year. So that would affect the successor agency's ability to get a last and final ROPS. So we'll bring this to you in 2 weeks. That has to go to the oversight board, then to Department of Finance. And once approved, that will enable, in effect, as far as DOF's concerned, that the bond proceeds that yet are to be spent will have been spent for ROPS purposes. Now, by the way, that does present an opportunity for you. I believe that not all of the commitments necessary for the use of the funds have been met. So you'll need to, and I'll be happy to help as necessary, work through a prioritization of projects that would be eligible for the use of those funds. No different than when the redevelopment agency was in existence. So that process needs to be followed again, and that will be brought back to you at a later time for consideration. So I'm able to say, as your chief wind down consultant, that I am pleased to confirm that the successor agency is fully compliant with each applicable requirement of the Health and Safety Code. You have done everything that you need to do. And it is anticipated, as I mentioned earlier, that the full wind down will occur by 2034, actually less 1 month. It will be last month, but in the year 2034. Maybe you'll all be on the council. And if I'm here, I'll be coming in on a wheelchair to make that last presentation. So the last slide is if there are any questions. And I understand you may have some specific ones, but in a generic sense of how I described how the process works, if you have questions about that, I would be glad to answer them. And if not, if there are specific questions, I'd be happy to dive into that and answer those for you to the best of my ability.
Steve, could you repeat what you just mentioned towards the end, the process of the bond, having to manage that leftover portion?
Well,
the
it's my
bond-
understanding that,
What did you call it?
the project selections have yet to be made.
No, but before that, we were talking about the transfer of the management of the leftover
Yes,
monies.
it's a technical transfer. From a practical perspective, it means nothing. Because
but
the
what did you
same
call it?
people, being all of you, are both the city council and the board of directors of the successor agency. You're one in the same board, but you function as legally separate entities. So in order to make that transfer happen so that it can be approved by Department of Finance, there needs to be an agreement between the two bodies. And I understand it's been prepared, and it's, I believe, scheduled for your next, I hope it to be scheduled for your next meeting. I would ask that it be considered then, because the idea is to have this in the hands of the Department of Finance before they complete the review of ROP 1617 A and B. You can decide if you want to have it at a different time, but it would complicate the review of your next ROPS. I would highly recommend that you consider it then, but I'm at your pleasure. So if you'd like to do it at a different time, we can do that as well. But I do believe it's worth consideration. Other of my successor agency clients have done this already, so that they can eliminate further review and discussion of such matters with DOF and qualify for the earliest period of time for a last and final ROPS, which significantly reduces the administrative costs of managing the successor agency. Now, it puts me out of business, but frankly, that's what my goal is here, and I do have other things to do. So, but wherever I can help my clients get into that last and final ROPS scenario to make life easier for everyone, that's what I'd like to see. So this is an initial step in that direction. But it's not on your agenda tonight, so I'm only discussing just the concept. The specifics of it, I would present separately at a different meeting.
Okay, I have some question about some property still owned by the success agencies. And I believe the gun clubs, the one of them, the gun clubs buildings, right now sitting as a parking lot as what's called the Grand Plaza.
Grand Plaza.
They will have a contract between city and the Grand Plaza. They are going to buy and the actual market price, and they will value appraisal value was about $2.3 million worth, and they will tear down the building. Now they're bare land only. How you going to deal with that? How much is going to be collected, and when we're going to sell? When they're going to buy?
Yes, that particular property and several others are included in your long-range property management plan that was approved several months ago. And so certainly the ultimate transfer of that property is included within your plan. So the plan calls for that. Now, backing up a few more years to the beginning of the process that ultimately led to the first phase of the outlet mall, it was agreed then in the agreements that the successor agency would place the matter of selling the property, and specifically to the Grand Plaza partnership, of that property at appraised value. So that has been accomplished. Certainly until a Department of Finance approval was obtained, it has been obtained, it's possible to move ahead. And now, I'm not aware of any recent appraisals that have been done. I know there were some done several years ago. I mean, it's possible to consider a sale based upon that. However, I would suggest that a current appraisal be obtained. My guess is the property is worth a little bit more than what it was some years ago. The developer is obligated to pay appraised value for the property. Now, so assuming all that goes well, which I would expect it would be, and I'd be happy to help wherever I can to facilitate that process, the net sale price, after you pay normal fees, because this would go through an escrow, there'd be title insurance, all those sorts of things, that's what they'd want, then the net proceeds would be distributed to the county auditor controller. So that money would go to the county auditor controller, who would in turn distribute it to all the taxing entities, including the city of Calexico. And so I was told that the city's approximate share of the 1% general tax levy is about 20%, thereabouts. And so if the amount of the value of that land, only for discussion purposes, were $1 million, and that, let's say that's the net proceeds after those fees for title insurance and escrow are paid for, then the city stands to receive in return from the auditor controller about $200,000, at least in that scenario. But it depends on what the real net proceeds are. That's true in every one of these sales, and there are several others that need to be done. There was one that was done in recent times, this last summer, I think is when it closed, it might have been early fall, with the General Services Administration for the new border crossing. And so that money, I was checking with Mr. Gutierrez, and that's programmed for distribution to the auditor controller, I believe, next week. Is that right? Yes. And I think that's around 700,000 or so. All right, so using the math I mentioned earlier, then the city general fund will receive a check for about $140,000. And so those amounts come back into your general fund to be used for whatever the general fund purposes are. And so there are, if my memory is correct, there are two other properties. There is a small shopping center that is on the west side of Cesar Chavez Boulevard on the west side of the street, just north of 2nd Avenue. That would be sold, as well as the motion picture theater property. So those would also need to go through a process of sale. I'm guessing the motion picture theater property would be the most valuable one. And so there would be a distribution of those proceeds. And again, the general fund would receive a portion of the net proceeds.
So we go back to the gun club again. Gun club, when they appraisal, they had the building. When they took over, they have the building. Actually, Grand Plaza, they tear down the new building.
Well, the building was antiquated, and so it had no practical use. I mean, at one time it was, but it was, that property was specifically built for that purpose, and so it's not the case any longer. In addition, because it was used as a gun club, it had very serious heavy metal contamination. And there were
But,
several $100,000 worth of remediation.
Yeah, but I think
that
the
had to be
city spent about $300,000 has been renovated.
That's interesting. They originally had estimated to be a smaller amount. I understand there was some confusion over exactly how that would be done, but the appropriate officials.
make sure we have
let's
to
say,
collect
won the
that
day.
value.
Yeah, and basically, everything that needed to be done according to law was done. So I'm not surprised it was a little bit more. But the agreement that was reached had a specific amount of a credit that would be made against the purchase price of that land, and it's less than $300,000. So what happens is the developer is just on, that's their responsibility for the difference. I'm not at all surprised to hear that, but no one twisted their arm to enter into an agreement like that. So there's just more money to distribute to the taxing entities. So they were, let's just say, good citizens then. They'll be good citizens.
Mr. Duckett, I noticed that on several pages there is money or outstanding debt or obligation for the swimming pool. Can you comment on that? It goes back to several years, but there is a recurring line item that has that there with a $3.5 million or something like that.
That is correct. Near the top of each of your ROPS forms, you'll see it as a debt service obligation of the Calexico Unified School District. And so that's a sole obligation of the school district for which the proceeds of that bond issue were to be used for the swimming pool. Now, in recent times, and this relates to the 6-month budget period we're in now, which is January through June of 2016, on that recognized obligation payment schedule was a request to release all of that money to the school district. There was an explanation made to the State Department of Finance. They initially had rejected the idea, and we asked for and received a meet and confer meeting with the officials at Department of Finance. Ultimately, Department of Finance made the wrong determination. And as a matter of, in other words, they did not approve it, other than to say that 5% of the money could be released. Well, that's, as you, I'm sure, recall, grander commitments were made, and the actual cost of the pool was much beyond the approximately $1.5 million in bond proceeds that would be available through this process. And interestingly enough, one of the major components of that funding was a grant from the state government itself, another division though, not finance, but another division, that relied on the use of those bond proceeds for this project. That didn't carry much weight with the Department of Finance. So we, in following up on this, we have had a meeting with the Calexico Unified School District officials, as well as their attorneys, to talk through what they might do. I mean, it is their issue to follow up. And there has been discussion that I know of with representatives of the local legislative offices, state senate and assembly, with respect to the possibility, two approaches actually. One is to continue to work the matter with Chief Counsel, Department of Finance, a lady by the name of Shelley Renner, who I've discovered through other venues is actually very reasonable. And also to seek some amendments to the Health and Safety Code that would clarify this matter so that the school district could get those dollars right away. I actually drafted the amendment and provided that and offered that into the process. And Councilmember Real was very helpful in making the contacts so that that information could be given to the right people as well as the school district. But the school district is carrying the flag on this. I believe they have done this. I don't have a recent update from the time that the language for the amendment was given. And maybe one of you might have that answer, I'm not sure. But I thought that was worthy of doing because why not try more than one avenue? Because the school district should get this. The law, by the way, with respect to restricting the use of bond proceeds for bonds issued in 2011 was designed. By the way, I don't agree with this, folks, but we all know how this came down. The governor gave his speech about doing away with redevelopment on January 11th, 2011. And many redevelopment agencies, including this one, issued bonds after that. Well, by the way, there wasn't any legislation at the time. There was a lot of discussion of what might be done, but no specific matter that could be responded to. So the business as usual continued. In this case, the Calexico Redevelopment Agency provided the opportunity for the school district to issue what's called conduit bonds. Their legal responsibility was going to be paid with pass-through dollars that they would get under contract, but all their money, not Calexico's money, and then Calexico also issued their own bonds. So it was always intended to be a school district matter. School districts are never intended to be punished, but the governor, through whatever procedures, decided to penalize cities who issued bonds in 2011 because they defied the governor. That's how he looked at it. I don't believe that. I don't think that was ever the intent of any of those that were doing this. And as a result, there was punishment. Originally, the punishment was you couldn't spend the money at all. And then through amendments, it's possible to spend some of the money. It depends on whether you have a last and final ROPS. You get an extra amount you can spend. It depends what month the bonds were actually closed in during 2011. You could get a little extra money. So, by the way, on the Calexico side, your last and final ROPS will allow the additional funds from the Calexico 2011 bond proceeds to be spent on meritorious projects. That all being said, the state has already established, I think, a precedent by, let's just say, backing off on the whip and the belt to the children that disobeyed the master, the governor, and I expect that to happen again. When exactly, I don't know, but I think it's a matter of realizing that we're playing with people's money. You all were the leadership here, and it's up in other places around the state. You applied that leadership for the benefit of your city, just as other cities have done, and the people in effect, that pay taxes and property taxes in those redevelopment areas are contributing to the debt service. So the argument is, the people who are paying for it, why aren't they receiving the benefit? Well, we know the law won't allow it, but that's, I think, a bad law. It needs to be changed. So we'd like to see that change going forward, and maybe this next cycle, for the budget, we might see more relief in that respect. I would certainly hope so, because it's just wrong. It's just absolutely wrong. And by the way, the state says, well, then why don't you just buy the bonds? Well, I will tell you this. During that particular cycle, it was a high interest rate cycle at that time. So the rates on for interest on bonds during the first half of 2011 were several interest rates points higher than it is now. What that means is if you wanted to go on the bond market and buy bonds, you'd pay somewhere between 115 to 120% of face value. Somebody would get a nice payday. That's another waste of public money too, by the way. So I think it's the better course of action is to get the money released, used for proper meritorious projects, and let's be done with it. So I think that should be the goal in terms of how that should be done. And so that's probably a longer answer than you wanted, but I feel the school district is really getting the short end of the stick here. However, it's a team. They know that Calexico is part of their team. And everyone involved in it has contributed as much as they can. They agreed to take the responsibility and lead it. I don't have a recent update. Maybe someone from the city might. I would love to hear that. Hopefully words of encouragement. Well, it's time for us to inquire again. What do you think? I think we should inquire before your next council meeting. I'd like to give a little update on that if I was able to get the information. I'm sure we can get it.
Thank you.
I have two. One is a question, the other is a comment. What you just said right now, then what I'm understanding is that the reason why that the funds were not fully available is due to the scheduling and to the look-back period where we were probably not planning around where we were going to want it all in one scheduled payment instead of several? Because there was a little confusion as to why there was only a certain percentage coming our way and not the full thing. So when you talk about amendments, what are you specifically trying to amend?
The Health and Safety Code.
Yes, but specifically what?
The section that limits the amount of bond proceeds that could be expended from 2011 bond issues, so that all of it's released.
So
It's actually
basically
a pretty
this is-
simple amendment.
This is a problem of not being able to touch funding due to timeliness or untimeliness, whatever you want to call that. And we need to have that
Well,
amended.
I suppose, but if you look at this, the bonds were issued, I think, in February, if I'm not mistaken, of 2011. And typically, when that is done, it takes some time to calculate out and determine what projects are going to be actually selected. And so the last day in which a former redevelopment agency could legally commit any funds would have been June 27th, 2011.
We just
And
knew
so
that the
there's not that
earthquake,
many months, although it's not impossible. I mean, there have been others that, I can think of another one of my clients in Imperial County, but their case, they didn't need to spend the money on a project because it was completely a refinancing of a prior bond issue, so there was no net money.
the other question or comment is that I've heard that, and you just kind of indicated the same thing, is that it looks like there's some funds that were RDA funds and are coming back to us in a trust fund. Is that what you said? So we should have a trust fund already established here at the city that's already accumulating that type of turnaround money.
Well, there would be some money that comes to the city from property sales. In addition, not all of
No,
the...
specifically RDA situation. Isn't that what you just said? I thought I understood that.
Well, the money that's received that's to use for enforceable obligation is held in a trust fund to be used just for those enforceable obligations. But it's not money for new things.
For example, like when you were saying when the properties are sold, then the state recovers and then they
You're
will
right.
turn around.
The finance department will write a check or wire transfer, depending on the policy of the county.
That's
To the
only in the
county
event of
auditor
sales?
controller,
Is
not-
that only in the event of sales of property, which we might not sell all of our
There's
property?
two ways to get extra money.
Okay.
That's one. So it
Okay.
goes to the auditor controller,
Okay.
and they will divide it by the taxing jurisdiction's percentage of the 1% general tax levy, which is about 20% or 20 basis points of that 1% levy for the city of Calexico. In addition, one would have to consider what the waterfall is with respect to the potential money that would be available for paying enforceable obligations. There are three categories. The first one, when the total amount is determined, if the RDA still existed, how much money would be available? They subtract from that the county's administrative fee and the contractual or statutory pass-through payments. Some of those come to the city. Then that's the first section. The next section is for enforceable obligations of the successor agency. So whatever's on the ROPS that's approved by the Oversight Board and DOF. The third section is if there's any money left over, it's called surplus redevelopment property tax trust fund money, surplus RPTTF. That too is divided in the same formula that would be applied to land proceeds. So whatever the percentage of the general tax levy is for the taxing entities, they would get funds from that area. And although I've cited large numbers, there is nevertheless a significant amount of surplus RPTTF that's coming to this city. I may have misunderstood where you're going with this, but some cities have decided to take the money that they're receiving in the surplus category and dedicate it to an economic development or housing development fund.
Right, I've
Because
heard that.
here's the reason for it. Because if wind down did not exist, it would all be with the redevelopment agency. And in some cases, in some jurisdictions, they are limited otherwise from funding economic development or housing projects. So they wanted to set aside a special fund. I would say the city that led the pack, the leading edge of this, is the city of Montclair in San Bernardino County. And they adopted by resolution, a policy, it's a budget policy. So it could be amended if they wanted to set aside funds that they would use to incentivize projects in the future. And because of their cash flow scenarios, it's brought to them several millions of dollars over time that they've been using for projects that they believe are worthy of investing in. Now, whether Calexico wishes to do that or is able to do it, I don't know. It depends on where your budget is otherwise. So, for example, if you have current stress on your general fund, I would recommend you let that cure before you do this. In other words, get your general fund whole first. And then when that happens, you might want to set this aside going forward. Sort of think that through in terms of when the timeliness might be.
Yeah, I think with
Find all the money
the
we can.
shortfall we have right now, I think putting the money in general fund is obviously going to be number one priority.
Right, if we can expedite the sale of property and whatnot, that might
Well,
fill that hole faster.
One of the things that Councilwoman Hurtado was mentioning, my understanding is the property dissolution plan, you have to sell these properties, correct?
That's correct.
So I believe she said that we weren't going to sell some properties or
Well,
possibly keeping the property. That's
there-
not possible.
Well, there is an advisory that you are to sell them for the highest possible value without a fire sale. So you're not under any duress. No one's putting.
It can't be an arm's length transaction.
Putting the
It has to be-
administrative gun to your head, so to speak, to try to get
Correct.
it done quickly. But you should have a good feel as council members as to what's going on in the real estate community in town. So,
Correct, but the council doesn't have the option of never selling it.
no, but the city, again, this has to do with general fund, the city could buy some of them if you wanted to. Now, some of my clients are actually going to do that.
Okay.
And in one case, they've identified other government entities that they're trying to sell land to because it would be good for them. It's good for cash flow, too. So it's all a matter of sale. Now, there's limited opportunities here. Now, the biggest transfer that could happen has already happened, which is the new border crossing area. That is a winner. That is going to be so great to downtown Calexico once that's all finished up. I can hardly wait. I know you feel the same way.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
It's a glimmer of hope.
At least they bought it, because before it was a trust me guarantee. Oh, we think we're buying it. Yeah, we want to buy it, but now escrow's closed, so they're the proud owners now. Now you can hold them to it. And so I imagine that the council members know you're a local Congress member, and you can always speak to them about this, if you can get it expedited.
I have one question regarding AB 2. Is there anything in the works to help out areas like us? I know that we talked about in the past, and it's supposed to be the comeback of RDA, kind of. Where are we? Where are we with that?
It was touted as the comeback to RDAs. However, the people who wrote it knew nothing about redevelopment agencies or cities, didn't know how tax increment financing actually works, and they have created a system that they're saying is going to be the new RDA that's fiscally unsound. And we have not been asked to prepare a plan like that for a client. We would if a client wants us to, only after full disclosure. So, for example, if you said to me, well, Steve, should we do one here in Calexico? My first recommendation would be no. It doesn't make any sense, and it wouldn't take too long to be able to explain why it doesn't make sense. I don't know why the legislators that put this together didn't ask people who are experts in the subject matter how to do this. It could have been easily crafted, but they didn't ask anyone about AB 126 either. They just did it. So I think that, I don't know why they did it.
Now, is this
It won't
something
work.
that at a legislative level could be fixed with the proper wording?
Oh, I think so.
Can it be amended
If
to
there-
work?
If there really is interest.
And is there anybody working with our Congress to get these things changed to make them work?
I am not aware of anything, although I haven't checked with respect to the status of bills in about 6 weeks. Last time I checked was at the League of California Cities website.
Sorry,
You-
Assembly
You all may
members.
have been there more recently. I haven't seen anything in that respect. It seems like the time is now to do something like that if they have any desire.
Yeah, I misspoke, but I know that our assembly member, I have asked him, and he says if there's something we need to do, then he's willing to.
Well, I'd be happy to
work, so-
offer the language. It would be pretty
Okay.
simple, too.
Okay, thank you.
The simpler, the better, you know.
Okay, I have a question. But school district side, Mr. Ciro Calderon will say the successor agency spent wrong. That's why the state took over the $1.4 million from
The
funds.
state has not taken over any money at all. The money has always been in exactly the same place. The state can't take any of your money. They can control whether you spend it or how you spend it. Now, what they would tell you technically is you're authorized to spend the money to retire the debt. That's a legal expenditure. But that's not what we want. We want the money to go to the school district for their use because this has always been their money. They legally own it. It's their property. It has nothing to do with the successor agency. And that discussion I shared with you earlier about the punishment to cities, this doesn't punish Calexico. It punishes the school district. It punishes the kids. That's what makes this so outrageous, actually. And so, and I know Armando spent some time talking to several people beyond the Calexico group. I have not spoken to one person yet anywhere that doesn't agree with this concept, other than the analysts at DOF that say, well, we can't do it. Really? Well, we have to find a way to get that done. And so I'm glad that the energy is there to follow up on this, because this does need special follow-up.
And I think, after doing a lot of the legwork to try and get that done, I know that, I guess the feeling in Sacramento is if we do it for Calexico, we're going to have to do it for other cities. And I think they don't want to open a can of worms, that's my understanding. And so,
It's a cop-out, because this unique circumstance of conduit bonds issued in 2011 is the one and only. No other jurisdiction has this.
and that's
So
something
it
that
doesn't set
we
a
need
precedent
to-
for anyone.
I think that's something that we all need to, I know we had a conference call and we talked about it, so hopefully get another call going with our assembly member and see if we can.
Yes, that's why the language referred to conduit bonds.
Correct.
So any jurisdiction that had conduit bonds could qualify, but there aren't any.
Okay.
So no one else will qualify.
So
And
it's
and
just a matter
frankly, I
of,
mean, it's not that I know that you're not into the League of Cities and you want all cities to do well, but everyone's job here is to let Calexico do the best. That's what we're all here to do. So that's what we were trying to accomplish, and hopefully we can get there on this.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is any council members? Thank you, Mr. Zuket.
Thank you very much. I'll be seeing you again very soon.
Thank you. Okay, we have a presentation by Imperial County Children's and the Families First Commissions.
Thank you, Mayor Kim, and good evening, honorable council members. And on behalf of the Children and Families First Commission, I'd like to thank you for having me here tonight to talk a little bit about what we do. First of all, it's going to be a tough act to follow here, but hopefully I can make this engaging for you and have some relevant and important information. There's three things that I'd like for council members to understand today. First of all, who we are, who the commission is. Secondly, what we do. And thirdly, how this impacts or how we are impacting Calexico. Okay, so who are we? First of all, we're a local commission.
Mr.
Pardon?
Rodriguez, is there any chance we have a written?
Oh, I'll
presentation?
pass out some information. I've got some handouts for you all. And actually, I can start passing this stuff out. Here's a brochure with some programs that we fund in the community. But first of all, who we are? We are a local commission that was established through Proposition 10. In essence, Proposition 10 was as a result of the Children and Families Act of 1998. And from that, 58 county commissions, individual county commissions were established, and one state commission, which is First Five California. The name of our commission is the Imperial County Children and Families First Commission. Just recently, our commission has decided to slowly transfer from Imperial County Children and Families First Commission to First Five Imperial, which is less of a mouthful to say. In essence, what Proposition 10 is, I don't know how many of you all are familiar with Rob Reiner. You might remember him. He's an actor, director. He was famous in All in the Family. He's famous. Out of respect for him, I won't say what they called him in All in the Family. Whoever knew that knows. And of course, he's a famous director. Done several movies. And the reason why I bring him up, he's pretty much the reason why the Proposition 10 Commission exists. He's an individual who's successful, well-educated, has probably more money than many of us can dream of, and like his wife as well. You know, they're both very well-educated. And when they had their first child, he realized that it's very difficult. I think anybody here who has a child, when you have your first child, even your second one, your world gets flipped upside down. No one can explain what it's like. So him being an advocate for individuals, for people, and understanding some of the plights that individuals have in the state, thought if me, an individual that has all the resources, has a difficult time raising a child, imagine what a single mother in Southern California, a farm worker in Imperial County, somebody who's working 3 or 4 jobs in the Bay Area, imagine how difficult it is for them to raise a child. Therefore, him and a group of collaborators put together an initiative that would work to provide services to families that have children 0 through 5 years of age. And from that, through Proposition 10, there was a tobacco tax. In essence, it levied 50 cents on each pack of cigarettes, and according a proportional amount on other types of tobacco products like chewing tobacco and cigars. And from that, revenues are dispersed. 20% goes to the State Commission, which is responsible for providing information throughout the state of California. And another 80% are divvied up among counties, 58 counties in the state of California. Revenues for Imperial County roughly amount to about $2.2 million a year. That's what we get to allocate our funds. Now, what do we do with that? Well, first of all, we have a commission. It was created by the Board of Supervisors through an ordinance in 1999, right after the passage of Prop 10. Through that ordinance, they identified us as being independent, or what we could call an instrumentality of the county, where we have our own governance structure. Though we still do share some commonalities with the county, our treasury services are through the county, and our auditing services are through them as well. And so from that, we have a 9-member panel. We have 3 ex officio members. We have the director for the Board of Supervisors, the chair for the Board of Supervisors, the director for the Health Department, and the director for Social Services. Those 3 individuals are mandated to be on our commission. And aside from that, we have 6 other members that could be in different areas in the community. Mayor Kim currently is one of the members of our commission. And likewise, we have members from school boards. We have a chief of police of the city of Imperial. We have a chief nursing officer from Pioneers Memorial on our commission, and we also have members from Imperial Valley College that sit on there. So in essence, what do we do? What does this 9-member panel do? This panel is responsible for allocating these funds in the community. Now, it has complete authority of how we decide to disperse these funds. What our commission decided early on was to have several mechanisms for dispersing funds. The major one is that we have a request for a proposal process. That's our major funding mechanism. It's a competitive grant that we release throughout the county. We also have a mini grant, and we fund some internal programs. Our next major RFP cycle will be coming up in 2018. Currently, if you look at the brochure that I handed you, that middle section there shows the projects that we're currently funding. Those are through our major grants. There's 12 of them. I'll talk a little bit about how they impact, how they may be impacting Calexico in a little bit. Our RFP cycle, roughly, the maximum award is $250,000 a year for a period of up to 2 years. And it's kind of interesting. Our process is, we feel that it's pretty good. It's fairly effective. We release our RFP. We ask for a letter of intent to apply so that we can plan. From that, we set up, from the number of letters that we set up, we established these review panels that are individuals that do not live in Imperial County that score these applications. They generally are experts in areas of children 0 through 5, and so they really understand the process of funding these types of applications. And then after that, their scores and recommendations come back to our commission, and from that, our commissioners, the 9 members, decide who receives the funding. Like I said, the section in the middle shows the trial programs that we're currently funding. We are funding one in Calexico. The neighborhood house of Calexico is currently doing an early literacy program or a family literacy. Then the other funding mechanism that we have is a mini grant application. I'll pass out a couple of applications for members to view. Our mini grant process, currently it's open. It's an open process. The application is due on March 15th. It's a simple application. It's actually a 2-step process. We provide this letter of intent to apply. This is all an agency has to submit to us in order to be considered. Now, the commission decides internally how we're going to fund these programs or who we would want to invite to apply. It's the first step is filling out this application. The second step is a little bit more complex, not that complex. It's a series of about 6 pages of narrative that have to be submitted to the commission for these mini grant programs. The amount is approximately $25,000. And the commission, the way the commission selects them is they review these statements of interest to apply that come in and invite those that they feel might be meeting some of the priorities. One of the things that we're tasked with before we do anything is that we have a strategic plan. We develop a strategic plan. It's pretty comprehensive. It's got 3 areas that have to do with the way children thrive. One is family function, the way they function. For example, how we may be working with children that are under the juvenile protective system. Any types of parenting programs that we may be offering to any parents in the community at large, or, for example, a family literacy program. The second area is early learning, the way children learn. That's our preschool centers, how we work with children in those settings. And the third is child health. For example, asthma is a big issue in our county. Childhood overweight or obesity is another issue in our county. Immunizations, and we have a growing number of children with special needs. So in essence, that's pretty much who we are and what we do as far as funding goes. We also have internal programs that provide services in the community because the commission felt that we had to have some things internally so we would have a pulse of what's going on. As a matter of fact, today we had a family resource fair at Dual School. We were here in Calexico today, and First 5 California provided what they call their First 5 Express. It's this mobile vehicle that they have that goes all over the state. They read with children today at Neighborhood House, and they also attended the family resource fair there at Dual School. We also provide car booster seats. That's something we do internally for families that may qualify for them. We canvass school district areas, the catchment areas for underperforming schools that we've identified. There's 9 schools we're working with in order to find young children so that interventions could be provided. We generally try to refer them out to other organizations. Now, see, one of the reasons why this is important, I think why all members of the community, whether it be this audience, council members, other groups that we work with, that we really have to look at how we work with young children. Because a lot of the issues, when you look at what impacts, things that may impact, just for example, the city council, incarceration rates, right? A lot of the more children with special needs that the city of Calexico may have, if those are things that we could prevent early on by good parenting programs, or good prenatal care programs for young mothers, a lot of these things may be prevented. And research has shown that with the proper allocations, proper interventions, it saves communities up to $12 for every dollar you invest early on in a child's life. before they're 0 through 5. Other things that we do is we provide stipends for childcare providers. We conducted a workforce study here in Imperial County, and one of the big findings of the workforce study is that a lot of the preschool providers or childcare providers that are out there working with young children don't have a lot of college credit courses. Many of them barely meet the minimum qualifications to be able to work in those settings. Some of them are there on waivers, so we felt that it was important to try to get a lot of these into the college to learn about child development, about issues that affect children, and develop professionally. So we have a stipend program that we pay childcare providers that complete up to at least 9 units, which is very difficult for them. That's a big incentive for them to complete 9 units a year. We provide them with a stipend for $500. We also have our own child signature program that we use to try to increase quality in the preschool system. Because once a child enters the K through 12 system, that child, they enter this marathon. There's a long marathon before they graduate from high school. A lot of these kids that come into the preschools, into the kindergarten setting, they come in and they that marathon, some of them show up without shoes. Some of them show up with a parent that's a good coach. That parent carries them through. So they're very much ready to really to be in that race, while many, especially, you look at Imperial County, at our demographics, our socioeconomic status, a lot of our kids aren't ready for this marathon. Let's see, and then we also passed this kit for new parents. First Five California has developed this kit for new parents. Pass it down, there's 2, one in English and one in Spanish. We are the primary purveyor of the kit for new parents here in Imperial County. We get an allocation of approximately 1,500 of those kits, and we provide them preferably to parents with children 0 to 2 years of age. But if there are parents, for example, with children that have special needs, again, a single mother that might have a child that's less than 5 years of age, we provide them with, we're more than happy to provide them with a kit for new parents. There's some very good information in there. There's a DVD. And it's interesting. It has quite a few modules. It has, for example, how to find preschool programs, how to find good programs, how to get good prenatal care. But the one section in that DVD that parents really love is discipline, right? How do you discipline your child? Tengo muchos problemas con mi hijo, no sé qué voy a hacer. So it's a good problem. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I'm sorry.
I'm just joking.
Okay, I'll sell it to you later. Found it. You found the prize. You shouldn't have said anything. And so in essence, that's what we do. That's what we do. Now, how do we impact Calexico? That's a big thing. That's pretty much kind of why I'm here today in many ways, unless if, of course, the city of Calexico decides to submit an application later on to the commission. I put together this brief fact sheet of some of the impact that you could say we've had here in Calexico. And in essence, there's quite a bit of information. I'll highlight some points. Currently, we could say of all the resources that we have, when you look at the brochure that I handed out to you, on a given year, between 23 to almost 27% of our services are actually provided to families or with children in Calexico, or children. Children may be the beneficiaries of the services. Whereas the population of El Centro, which it's fairly consistent because the population of the 0 through 5 population in Calexico is about 24.5 to 25%. Of course, it fluctuates yearly. We've served approximately, last year we served approximately 2,790 children, 0 through 5 years of age, in the city of Calexico, about 1,325 parents. Now that seems like quite a bit. One important thing is that there may be some duplication in there, because of HIPAA regulations, we don't cross-pollinate with some of our projects, because there are agencies we're not the ones providing all these services. It may be the County Office of Education, it may be Neighborhood House, the Public Health Department, and therefore they may be reaching some of the same families. We also provide a number of capacity building activities for professionals that work with children, primarily medical providers that might be working here in Calexico, early care and education providers that are working with the early learning of young children, and human services personnel. So some of the highlights, I don't know if you all are familiar with the Brawley Public Library. It's that mobile library that drives around all over the county. We fund that project. It's a project designed to provide storytime activities at preschool centers for children 3 to 5 years of age. They do impact Calexico quite a bit. That's one of their big service areas. And one of the nice things about what they do is that they provide up to 5 books per year for children because they do multiple visits. So children are actually, some children that may never have access to literature or children's books may receive that benefit. They may actually have the opportunity to develop their home library. Another project I'd like to highlight is court-appointed special advocates. They served approximately 49 children, 0 through 5, that were wards of the court or under the custody of the juvenile protective system. I think one of the important things about this program is that we've worked with them. Generally, a CASA program may only advocate for a child. Some of the things that they've been able to do as a result of how we work with them is that they have a capacity to screen children. They can actually go in there with a child that has been removed from their family, and they do provide a developmental screening service and find out issues that the child may affect the child, whether that be just a simple speech impediment, maybe because nobody talks to the child, to a serious disability, and even in some cases, they've been able to determine that the child has been abused as a result of a developmental screening service. So that's very important. But perhaps even more important than that is what follows, because the average child that may go through a developmental screening service will get referred if they're flagged as having maybe, let's say, a potential disability, because that's what it does. It identifies where there may be a potential disability or delay in learning. These children get flagged, but the problem is that the system is overburdened, and it may take up to 6-7 months before somebody sees that child again. Now, where CASA has been very effective is you have the court system, court orders these services, so they happen right away, which is very important because foster children, perhaps aside from children with disabilities, are the most vulnerable children in our system, namely because these children, when they age out of the foster system, they're at 18 years of age, their outcomes are dismal, they're terrible. Many high-functioning children with disabilities have much more opportunities than a foster child that ages out of that system. So this is very important. And another thing that they do is they work very hard now to reunify these children with their biological parents. If it works, if it's something that's doable, that is a priority. Another project we'd like to highlight is our asthma project. This is a good one, especially for Calexico. I think lately you've all seen that there's this issue with asthma, right? Asthma, it's been at the forefront. I think even the New York Times has been doing articles on Imperial County because we've got issues with the Salton Sea, we've got some border issues related to pollution, and asthma is a #1 concern right now in the county, so much so that the local health authority has set that as their #1 priority, asthma. Now, it's kind of interesting. The big issue with asthma in our county isn't asthma itself. It's the hospitalization rates, how they burden the family, how they burden our system, and the costs. A child in Sacramento County, in general, has the same likelihood of having asthma as a chronic condition. It's roughly about 25%, same as Imperial County. But a child in Imperial County is 3 to 6 times likelier to be hospitalized because of that condition than a child in Sacramento County. So there's issues out here, issues with asthma management, asthma control. On the sheet that I provided for you, you see that 41% of the child asthma project's caseload was here in Calexico. Now, it's kind of funny. That's good for Calexico. It may show that this program is working, and I'll say why. It's always been the belief that asthma by the border would be higher, right? People think, there's pollution from Mexicali, asthma rates are higher. When in reality, that's not so. Asthma rates are much higher, or hospitalization rates are much higher in the North County, up in the Brawley area, in Calipatria, in Nyland, than they are here in Calexico. This has been shown by two different, they did a BASTA study here back in 2008. The California Department of Health Services found, that was one of the findings that they had, that there were much more children up in the North County that had asthma. Nobody wanted to accept that. People here in the county, that can't be possible, Mexicali, the pollution, this and that. California Breathing, if you look on their website, they track kids by their incidences of hospitalizations by zip code. Same information. It's in North County. We feel that the asthma project has had a pretty good impact here in Calexico because they're designed to manage asthma, to try to avoid those hospitalizations, the rehospitalization, and high hospitalization rates of children that may suffer from that chronic condition. So that's a pretty good impact. Mr. Kim, you had a...
Yeah.
Am I running out of time here?
Yeah.
I'm running out of time, folks. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Lots of
Last one.
valuable information, especially asthma information things. If you can send us to put our website, our citizens can get the help from there.
Yes, we'll put that up there, and perhaps it might be a good thing to bring Aida Fulton from the Child Asthma Program to provide a presentation for you all. And if you know anybody who's interested in applying for a mini grant and perhaps in the near future a major grant, please look at our website. The brochure that I handed out to you on the last section, the last folding section on the bottom, our website is listed on there. And any questions, our number is there. Feel free to call me. Thank you.
Is any council member that has a question about the programs?
No.
Okay,
No
thank you.
Just for clarification, it has to be from 0 to 5 years old.
Yes, 0 to 5. Exactly. If a child is beyond.
No, I'm saying any program that doesn't deal directly with children in 0 to 5 can't.
Well, as long as they may be dealing with 0 through 13, so there's a 0 through 5 age group in there, so
Okay.
that would be okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Rodriguez, some information, if you leave it on the table over there.
Can I get a business card?
Yes,
All
absolutely.
right, thank you.
You gotta leave some cards with you all?
If you leave that some information on the table, maybe people can
I'll
pick
leave
it
it
up,
out.
please.
Yes, Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Okay, now the public comments and the public appearance note. The not to exceed the 3 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the city council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. The mayor will recognize that when you come to the microphone, please state your name and the place of residence for the record. While members of the public are encouraged to participate, it is unlawful to disturb or delay the council meeting with the personal or slanderous remarks. If the item you wish to comment on is a closed session or consent item, please comment now. The city council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing item not included on the printed agenda. If the item you wish to comment on is on the public portion of the agenda, we will take your comment when we get to the item on the agenda. Please direct your questions and the comments to the city council. We have person's name, Benjamin Holton.
Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council, which one is it? Is it the EDC report?
No, the pool.
Oh, you wanted to pull?
Yeah.
All right. In reference to the pool, if you were to look at the minutes from the pool when we first conceived the pool project and the bonding, and you'll see that I made a let's say, a discussion, a talk about it. And in reference to, it took, originally it was 1.8 to do the pool. 1.8 was given out to get 1.4. Now, I just want to say one thing. I'll make it really directly to the point. For the pool, everything is done except for one thing. There was never the agreement between the city and the school district. If you had that, there would be no problem in Sacramento. And that was part of the deal way back when I talked to we had the discussion. It is very important to have the agreement. Now, you're asking, why do I bring that up? Who was responsible during the signing? The one that's facilitating the bond or the pool deal, or the city or the school? We went ahead and did the bond without having the agreement or having an agreement in hand. So we may have some major problems in order to move forward. Maybe I should have said something when the gentleman was here, but I remember that part. And in the city, just in general, we have had CFDs, we have had Measure H bonds, we have had the water and sewer bonds. We should look at all of these and see how they were facilitated and the manner that they were facilitated. And in this case, what Mr. Real said, maybe we should start looking at some audits of certain things, and what Mr. Kim had talked about in reference to Measure H.
One quick thing, I just want to add, I believe that document is lost, or it was never, nobody knows if it was lost or it was never actually done.
I don't think it was ever
but
it should have been
Okay,
in hand,
Mr. Leal.
but we can't really discuss it. I'm
Okay.
just giving some points for discussion between the city council and the school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holton. What I remember, the city approved the MOU, actually,
Hey,
about
you can't.
2 years ago. Thank you. The next person, Joaquin Tapia. Joaquin Tapia. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, City Council people, general public, my name is Joaquin Tapia. I want to say a few words about racism. That word has been thrown around too often here. And of course, you see it on television, and now you can't even think of the word wetback or the N-word or anything like that in the privacy of your home because you're a racist. That's ridiculous. How do you fight that? With common sense, empathy, and sense of humor. When I was in the military, I was proud to have served my country. I came home and I landed at LAX, and there were 5 hippies, full-grown men, spit on me. Okay, now, common sense and empathy. This guy's, I knew that if I got in a fight with him, I would end up losing. No, there was no doubt about that.
You didn't have your M14 at the moment.
Pardon?
You didn't have your M14 there at the
No. And if I'd had it, I'm glad I didn't have it. But these guys were not, common sense tell me that were not spitting at me, they were spitting at the uniform. Because if I not been wearing the uniform, they would not be spitting on me. And they were trying to stop the war. So from there, I took the bus to LAX, to downtown Los Angeles. When I got there in the bus, this guy came over, well-dressed, white guy. He said, "Where are you heading?" "Compton, California, to see my sisters." "You just came from overseas?" I said, "Yes, can I give you a ride?" I'm glad I did not hate all hippies or all white people because of that. That guy, I thought then, when we were driving to Compton, I was wondering whether this guy was gay or gay. you know? What the hell's going on here? And no, he wasn't. He was just thankful that I had served my country, and he was trying to do something good for that. So after that, I thank him, of course, and I got a job in a produce company selling produce in 9th and 7th Street Market. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's where all the stores go and get their produce and fresh fruits in LA. And when I got there, I made the first phone call, and this guy said, "Hey, I'm Joe Benino. Can I meet you for coffee? I want to see what Jack Tapia looks like." I said, "Okay." He saw me. He said, I want to tell you one thing about this market. There's the Jewish people, and there's Asians. All of us, all the rest, forget it. You look like a Mexican." And he said, "No." And he said, "This guy that I'm going to introduce you, and don't try anything stupid because he's a karate expert, Japanese, and he hates Mexicans." So, okay, that's where the humor came in. And he said, you don't shake hands with him, you just go like this when you agree with him. Okay. Introduced me, and I hugged him. I said, "Hey, thank you very much." You went like this, like if I was full of crap or something. And then I hit him in the back, and I said, "Let's have coffee sometime." Well, from that next week, he started calling me every night to have coffee with him. I said, "Son of a gun," he said, and I heard it through the grapevine. He said, "That SOB is crazy," and I love him. And
Mr. Tapia, would you wrap up, please?
Pardon?
So we got 3 minutes up.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay, your 3 minutes already passed.
Oh. Okay,
Can you wrap
if
up?
want to hear my story?
Sorry.
Mr. Tapia, can me and you have coffee?
No.
I'll pay. I want to hear that story later.
One thing that I want to say, though, I've heard negative from all of you in the city council, and I don't care as long as you do a good job up here. I don't care. The only thing I have an issue with is that this is bilingual. When in Rome, you do it the Romans. English is spoken here. Let's do it in English. That's the only issue I have. And if you don't like me for that, I'm sorry, that's the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Tapia. Okay, next person, Ismael Lopez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Assemblyman, Councilman, I'm sorry.
Wow.
Public, good evening. Third time, and this will be my last. I'm not going to say it again. And I could be wrong because I'm not checking the webpage of the city of Calexico. But I know that some of you, as well as I, will love follow-ups. You throw something, an issue into the table, we want to know what's happening with that issue, where it's going, where it's leading. I heard first time about the policemen, the volunteers. Are they on full force, partially? I don't know. The other one is the financial package. We're working on it, and we're still working on it. Maybe I missed something, and I apologize if I missed it. Third thing is that last session, you're going to review the Code of Ethics, and it's going to be placing to all of you to discuss it, where it's going, when we're going to hear something, where we're going to know something or learn something. We have a lot to learn from all of you, mainly from you because you were elected by us. Personally, I love to hear news, good or bad. It doesn't matter. I love to hear them because it will allow me to contribute, do my own judgment, come here and say what I'm thinking, or how can I provide you with some assistance. I haven't heard from the city of Calexico and through you, what plans are you working on or are developing to bring Calexico back into the black? What is happening? You meet, you talk to the citizens of Calexico. What's going on? If you don't have any plans or you haven't discussed it, well, get the citizens of Calexico involved in helping and put something together. Today I heard in the news about city of Flint, Michigan. They came out of bankrupt because the city management, councilman, mayor, they talked to the people and they got them involved. What are we doing? We know we're in a hole. Who's going to help us fill it out, level it, and grow some trees there? That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Next person, Sean Acuna.
Good evening, members of the council. Sean Acuna, president of the Calexico Police Officers Association. As president and on behalf of its members, I wanted to commend the city council for their appointment of Chief Reggie Gomez. We're very pleased. We're able to work with this individual and also Mr. Finley. We have as you know, we've been going through negotiations and whatnot. It's no secret that, we've had to do a lot more with less. Everybody's short-staffed in the city, not just the police department. And under Chief Gomez's leadership thus far, he's very progressive and he's put some plans into action. Being that we're so short, he's basically coordinated with the U.S. Border Patrol. The efforts of the Stone Garden have actually been concentrated here in Calexico. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the Sheriff's Department, you've seen Calexico PD, Imperial PD, a lot of other agencies down here assisting, especially in the downtown area, because we had a rash of vehicle thefts that were almost unstoppable. We were having anywhere from 1 to 2 thefts a day. And so they actually put a big crunch on that. As we speak right now, and this is all coordinated by Chief Gomez, we have approximately 70 agents from the Imperial County Narcotic Task Force and the Gang Task Force together that are working as we speak to target individuals that are wanted on parole and probation violations. So that's going to be the next 2 days. You're going to see a big law enforcement presence here, and it's because of our chief. So, I said I was going to keep it brief. We just want to commend the council on their appointment of the chief that we have, because he's doing an excellent job thus far.
Mr. Acuna, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Unless the chief wants to answer. I understand that there was a list of eligible candidates already developed, where candidates have, I think it's been about a year or so, where the process ended up with an eligibility list. I believe we have an eligibility list at this moment.
That is correct.
Why are we not hiring those individuals from that eligibility list? If it's already ready, they've already been gone through the process, and is it funding?
I believe it is. I think
Okay.
those positions, even
Okay,
though...
this is, I think this is not Mr. Sean Acuna's job to answer this. That one has to be city manager or police chief.
That's what I was saying, maybe the
positions.
chief may want to answer.
I can
That's
answer it
city
if you allow me
Yeah,
to.
but
I
the
mean, I
thing
know
is,
the
you're not
answer.
in administrations.
Okay. Well, since we can't answer that question, let me just put something else that's out there. We do have actually 3 reserve officers that are almost have completed the hiring process. I think there's only 2 more steps, the psych and the medical, and once they complete that process, they are going to be commissioned and placed out onto the streets. So that's another thing that we're doing that's going to help the shortfall that we have right now.
I just have one quick comment, and I think my comment is, I know there's enough pointing fingers, but are you speaking for the whole POA leadership, saying that Chief Gomez right now, there's a lot of controversy on our past chief, Mr. Boston.
Correct.
And so would you say that the council has made the right decision for the police department with this chief?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The big difference between our predecessor and Chief Gomez is that he actually makes things happen.
Okay, so not a lot of talk, but action.
Correct.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next person, Javier Gonzalez. He's gone.
I just had to, I'm sorry.
Okay, I believe conclude the public comments. Now, yeah, but you already had the extra your time for the public comment times. Yes. No, but you already have your time's been spent.
But he's an he's giving a report on economic development, I mean.
No, they never had a meeting, and then every commissioner president has to have their own meeting first to report in this. They cannot report by personal owns.
Report?
I missed one person's. Mungias? Mungia.
Munguia.
Good evening. My name is Monica Munguia. I am the event lead for the American Cancer Society Calexico Relay for Life. I'm here tonight to invite the council members and the public to our event. It is March 12th from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. We've been having this event in Calexico for over 10 years, I believe. The reason that we have the Relay for Life is that we raise funds. We raise funds for the whole year, and we use the funds, and we donate all the funds to the American Cancer Society, and they use it for programs, research, education, and hopefully for the elimination of cancer. That day of the event, it is not 24-hour any longer, it's only 10 to 12 hours. And the day of the event, we are also raising funds. We will be selling different items, foods, handcrafted items. We also will have entertainment. So we would like the councilmen and maybe some of the public to come out and help, because we all know someone that has had cancer, who is fighting cancer. And we do have a luminaria ceremony at 9 p.m. where we do remember those who have passed and those who are fighting right now. So I am leaving you my business card if you need any other information. Like I said, we have been here for 10 years, and we will be at Crummett Park March 12th from 10 to 9 p.m. So if you have any questions, you could contact me or you could contact the American Cancer Society.
It has been done before at the high school, correct?
Right, we used to do it at the high school for 24
Okay.
hours, but we are a much smaller event, so we moved to Crummett Park. We do have over 20 teams, and we have raised anything from 8,000 to 20,000 in the past years. So we have, all our organization is volunteer. These are all volunteers that come out and help us. So
Awesome.
if you have some time on March 12th, come out and join us. Thank you.
Are you guys still looking for volunteers?
Yes, of course. We're
Okay.
always having volunteers come out. My committee is the two ladies over there, Socorro Escalante and Marta Otero, and we have had different people in the community come out and help us. But yeah, we have had cancer survivors from people hit with cancer from 5 years old to 80 years old. So, and I don't know if you know this, but I was listening to the gentleman from the families group. The Valley does have a high cancer rate. We have a very high cancer rate. They don't want the public to know that, but we do. And there is a reason that there is so much cancer in the Valley. So you will be hit with someone in your family who does have cancer. And it's not life-threatening all the time. My husband is an 11-year survivor, and he's doing very well. So if you want information, if you just want to have a good time, come out and see us.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You're doing great jobs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Okay. Now we come to the council. Mr. Leal, you want to say something? 3 minutes?
I'm okay.
Okay,
I'll pass.
Ms. Hurtado? Okay, Ms. Moreno? Mr. Castro?
Somebody just alerted me that the video has no audio.
This one?
Okay.
Yes, good evening. Today, I attend to the JPA meeting today, and I received a letter from California State Controller. I'm the president of the JPA, and well, this letter, Mr. John Quinn, the former finance director, he sent that to the California State Controller. Would you please, Gabby, can you read the page? I think you have it.
I can
letter.
read it. I can read it if you want to have a
let her-
microphone.
let her
You have a
read it.
microphone?
No? Okay.
Nobody's, so.
Well, I can read it.
Well,
I'll keep it to time. They want the time.
so,
This is basically what Mr. Quinn tells the...
okay, okay. So also this message is also to advise you that the City of Calexico wishes to leave the Calexico Special Financing Authority as an inactive entity for the foreseeable future. The council and management will discuss the matter at a future council meeting and act accordingly. If you need some other additional means of our submitting this notification of the status, please let me know. Thank you for your help. We are still trying to locate the document that transferred the financial authority to the new JPA or that amended the existing agreement, which we do not have, if you need it.
Well, with this letter that Mr. John Quinn sent to the control officer, what he sent to this office, he lied, because this entity has been acting for, well, in my case, I've been in that board for almost 8 years, and we still active, and that's the reason Mr. Real, he read this information. And we have some member here, Sylvia, do you want to mention something related to this issue?
We found out today at our regular JPA meeting, this letter was sent to Gabby, and, you know, it really puts us in a situation where now we have to, they're asking for documentations to prove that we still exist. Gabby, what is it that they want from us? For the whole year, we have to give a financial transaction report. You know, that means going back to our bookkeeper, that means, you know, having people, and I don't understand why this person did this. We have been in existence for over 20 years with the JPA, and for somebody to do this, I don't know who gave him the orders to do this, but this is uncalled for. This is not correct. JPA is still existing and will continue to exist as long as we have the sales tax money left over. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Well, that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Castro. Ms. Hurtado, ready? Thank you.
Last Wednesday, we had a Imperial County Transportation Commission meeting. The Imperial County Transportation has the responsibility to oversee all transportation needs for the city of Calexico. They go out and they obtain special funding and grants to be able to assist each city to meet their transportation needs. And the meeting that we had last week, the ICTC Commission, which consists of city council members throughout Imperial County, supervisors and IID, and also someone from Caltrans. And the commission voted to provide Calexico with a grant to continue with the planning stage that we're at right now for a public transportation center. The public transportation center has been in the works for quite a while. The location was chosen through many studies. These types of things are very complex and they require quite a bit of studies, so there's been a lot of studies going on right now. The location that the ICTC program has selected is the Rite Aid Old Building on 3rd Street. That property, that block, is intended for the bus shelter. I actually had some renditions, but I forgot to bring those, but you can see them online. And what it is that the city of Calexico, the studies found that our transportation center needs to stay away from the actual port of entry door, because this transportation center will not only be for the county buses, which we have a Garnet line coming around that will be our public transportation county line. You see them in the city of Calexico already, but they will have a change of name. And these transportation systems go out throughout all Imperial County, and each city has a different system. So our system, we want to have that bus depot on that one section, the one that's between Heffernan and Rockwood, I believe, on 3rd Street. So we're looking at all the planning stages right now. It's very exciting because you also have spaces for agricultural labor buses, which means those agricultural labor buses will no longer clog your downtown. And so it was well planned out so that that transportation hub now will also bring some life to 3rd Street. So I'm really excited about doing all of that and seeing that happen. You have transportation hubs that the county has brought to the cities of Imperial, the cities of El Centro. You can see them. They're done. We're not done yet because ours is bigger and the amount of transportation needs out here is a lot larger. So keeping tabs on all of that, and very, very happy that the Transportation Commission is supporting Calexico so much in order to improve our transportation needs. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Leal, you have something to say?
No.
No? Mr. Moreno?
I better not.
Okay, then it's falling to me. And I've been had a meeting with the park. The park is, we call the park, so it's not park, but Daniel Gutierrez Park it's been better condition, but they're still complaining about the soil condition. It's too dusty, they were complaining. So we might have to little more extra care for the water before they starting the gaming. And also, we had the news conference last Tuesday, and we have serious problem in our budget. We have these years for the past years, $6 million deficit. Totally, we spent it over $10 million more than we're making in the last 2 years, especially last year, 14, 15. And this year itself, we are already short, $2.5 million short, and probably going to be more. And also our revenue is not coming like we predicted it. So we're going to have a big hole in this year too. So again, I request the community and all the employees of the cities and federal council members work together. That's the only way we can get through. If not, we might have to call the situation we don't want to. So we need to work together to get through this hard time. And I believe some of the council members, they are reliable on this. And former administration been raped our city badly. And someone has to be reliable, and someone has to be questioning by the citizens on their positions. Thank you. Okay, now I have a city manager's report. I believe before the city manager's report, and I'd like to ask the city manager about the Rockwood Street that we've been discussed. That one first about I'm gladly we have some kind of find a way to fixing the Rockwood Street. And Rockwood Street has a free massage streets. So when you're driving there, you're gonna have a free massage over there.
Free massages?
Yeah, free massage. Because when you drive the car, they're gonna be shaking your body.
Good evening, Honorable Council and members
We
of
should
the
charge.
audience.
We need the revenue.
To answer the question on Rockwood Avenue, we are going to be starting our next street overlay improvement, and Rockwood is one of the streets that will be on that next phase that will be coming before you. We're going to be putting an RFP. Not only will it be overlaid, we're also looking into the possibility of improving some of the utility systems, the sewer, and possibly the storm drain within that street to make some improvements to it. So that'll be coming before you as soon as we get the RFP plan out. Once we get the responses back, we'll be coming before you for your guys' approval within the next fiscal year. The other item is Highway 98 improvements. They have started today. They are currently removing some trees along the green belt area between Edie and V.V. Williams. The trees need to be removed due to the fact that the utility poles, the high voltage poles for the IID will be relocated to the north of that green belt, and some of that green belt, of course, will become part of the roadway. So that work was to commence today. I didn't get a chance to drive out there this morning, but it was due to start today, so that project is in process. So that is my report for today.
I just wanted to reference something that a citizen has been coming and referencing a few times, and that is that the city does need some type of Facebook page or a newsletter going out to the citizens via water bill or something to let them know the things that are going on in the community. And so maybe that's something we can work on. I know that when you go to other cities, you go in to pay your water bill, they have a TV there showing,
So whose report is it? Is the city manager's
what's
report or
happening.
is it Mandy's report?
And some residents, I guess, not everybody has Facebook to know what's going on, but, something to
Call
let
for
the
the
public
question.
know, so.
We can make sure it gets put on the website due to the fact that we don't have Facebook currently due to the fact of the lawsuit that we are currently in.
Okay. What about a newsletter with the water bill? Is that something, that's probably the cheapest way to get news out there.
Something we can take a look at, yes, we sure can.
Okay, Mr. Finley, I think I've been requested about the Border Patrol, the water service reports.
Yes, just to update you on the new Border Patrol station on the east side of town, there is, they are requesting a will serve letter from the city. They are currently working with the State Department of Water Resources Control Board. They are getting their authorization for the approval of this will serve letter, as they are requesting that the city provide them water and sewer out to that location. However, they have a procedure they need to go to getting the State Water Resources Control Board approval first.
Are you talking about the Border Patrol station?
On the east side of town.
That was already at council one time for that. They're coming back again?
That's correct. They're looking to bring it
That was at
back.
council probably about a year and a half ago.
Correct.
So they're back again, they want the same exact service since?
They want that the city will provide a will serve letter that if we're willing to
Which
provide
at that
them
time, we did
service.
not find it was appropriate or possible for us to serve that, being that it's remote.
My understanding is at that time, the city didn't believe that we could supply the water due to, I guess, the pressure drop, or we didn't have the capacity, I mean, we need another, what is it, clarifier anyways, so it's just kind of like, do we have the capacity to go out and give them water? And not just that, but what about developments that are coming in? Will we be
just don't understand
held
where-
back because of giving water to the Border Patrol? Now we can't grow homes or Grand Plaza or, something else I think that's something we need to definitely look at.
We're taking a look at that. Their water requirements out there are very, very little. They don't use a lot of water due to the fact that the procedures that they conduct out there don't require a lot of water usage at this time. However,
What are they using now for water?
They have their own water treatment system. It's a portable, potable water system. However, it's not meeting the state compliances, and that's why they're looking to come requesting from the city's support. to provide.
I know we're not supposed to debate right now, but we did talk about that already a year and a half ago. And the project that was completed out there was one of our staff members that consulted with them to build that. So when we addressed it, we found that it just wasn't going, why, I don't understand. Maybe we should have an item so that we can understand why they're bringing it back again. We
Well,
just did it a year and a half ago and found it was impossible. Why are we doing it again? But maybe an item, because it's not here, not the moment. Sorry.
At the time, the council was approved to give the service.
What did you say?
We give the direction to the administration to give the possible to give the service to the Border Patrol. So they were making they were studying this, making conversation with them, but it takes so long.
Yeah, I do recall that. I wasn't on council at the time, but I do recall there was talk about if the city had the I guess the means to give them the water, so.
But
okay.
council will give the direction to do it.
Specifically because they're not in our sphere of influence. They're too remote. So just maintaining that line, that one line. So anyhow, I think maybe we should have it as an item.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Billy. And now we have concluded our city manager's report, the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are to be considered routine by the City Council, Calexico Community Redevelopment Agency, Success Agency, or Calexico Financing Authority, and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separate by the City Council. Is there any council member wish to discuss separately?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Aye.
Motion by
Aye.
Mr. Real and second by Mr. Moreno. Has any vote?
Aye.
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 Mr. Moreno?
Aye.
Mr. Hurtado? You're not voting yet.
Yes, I did. I think she's waiting for you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this item removed from the consent, okay, this one, discussion and the potential action items. 6, authorizing interim city manager to sign agreement for the professional service between the City of Calexico and Dynamic Consulting Engineers for plan check service for the Grand Plaza Outlet Mall Power Center on-site improvement plan Phase 2A. Mr. Finley?
Yeah, this item is brought before the council for their approval of awarding the bid to the lower bidder, which is Dynamic Consulting Engineers out of the city of El Centro at a amount of $14,600. This is for the grading plan checks for the Grand Plaza Phase 2A, which is called the Power Center on-site improvements. So this is to go forth with those improvements. This is the beginning stage of the project.
Okay, so any questions?
Yes. We are looking at this contract because we have no Public Works Director, is that correct? Because this job is what our usual Public Works, in-house Public Works Director would be doing, or is this something a little different?
No, this is because we do not have an engineer, correct?
Okay. And then as far as the contract is concerned, I didn't see a scope of work as far as the addendum here. City Attorney. I don't see the scope of work. The other question would be, with regard to the choosing of this consultant, did we need to have to go out for RFP? Because it seems if we only have two choices here and needed to know if this actually required an RFP, we will be doing, the other thing is, of course, the concern for our community is that we do not have a Public Works Director. We lost that Public Works Director last year, and he has not been replaced. So I understand from many conversations of individuals who have contacted me, they're very concerned we don't have an in-house Public Works Director. So I believe that this council should consider hiring a new Public Works Director. But in this case, there's not a scope of work in this contract. And the second question is, why did we not RFP this type of work?
I believe the idea was that the proposal that's with the packet would be the scope of work.
I'm sorry?
And on the RFP, as I remember, there was a general RFP for engineering services that was approved by the council at the last meeting.
Okay.
And so they, under the purchasing policies, they can informally bid these that are under 10,000.
This is 14.
This is 14.
Correct. That's my concern.
Well, anyhow, the last council meeting, the council approved a list of contractors, and then in choosing these individual ones, what's the process you use?
We just randomly picked two of the firms that were approved from the last meeting, which were a total of 5 firms that were pre-approved.
So you guys going off some type of rotational system?
That's correct.
Off the 5 that were approved?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's this one's turn, pretty much.
Yes.
Now, so this wasn't really put out for RFP per se, but it's these 5 firms that are going to be doing services for the city.
That's correct.
Okay.
Why do you feel there's so much difference between those two that we're looking at? They're more than double.
We don't know at this point, because like I tell you, this is a general just grading plan. It's not a lot of work. It's reviewing the plan that's already been submitted by the developer. So there's really not a lot of work that entails into it. And they both took a look at the plans, and they both gave a.
It's just that Holt Group is very well known in Pearl County. They represent, I believe, Hopeville and some other cities, and I know they're highly respected in their work. I'm not familiar with the other company. Not that they're probably not professional, but it just is very interesting. The local company who's highly known and respected here has a higher price than the non-local. So I just wanted to understand what that difference was.
Competition.
Because if this is the process that we're going to have to follow from here on in to choose our who is going to be our public works each and every time, then I think we need to know some parameters as far as how to choose.
Like we said, they're going to be on a rotation basis. The next proposal will incur 2 other ones or 3 other ones.
So I'll just repeat my concern about the community. I believe we do need to hire a in-house public works director. It's pretty important for our projects.
A public works director and an engineer, or an engineer.
Well, Mr. Servine, who was let go of last year, was both. He was an engineer, and he held the position of public works director.
Okay, Mr. Finley. Is that this job for the engineer's job? If we have it in-house, he could take care of it, or anyways he's gonna go to the out of the contract.
When we had an engineer, everything was sent out everywhere. Anyways.
So we have engineer, but we still sending everything out of the source, no?
I believe there was some work going out, yes.
So actually,
Ralph, could you?
We have a high salary person to just managing, but still go out there to some other entity to their jobs.
You could
I think
look at it that way.
Ralph could probably let us know.
Are we going to take action on this bid or not?
That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm requesting. Yes.
Then let's take action on the bid. There's a request for proposal. What questions do you have to ask, Mr.
I just have, Mr. Ralph, is this something that?
Wait, okay, Mr.
Is this something
Mr. Real?
That our staff could have taken care of when we had an engineer, or would have this gone out anyways?
The staff response has to be authorized by the city manager.
City
we
manager,
cannot call the staff
would you
directly to do it.
authorize the staff to answer my question?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
If we had a city engineer, the city engineer we had in the past, would this have still gone out to be done outside anyways? I know most of the engineering work was sent out.
Well, there would be, depending on the type of work that's being done,
That's what I'm saying, this job here.
yeah, then
Would it have been sent out?
it probably would not. I would say at this point. I don't know what the full scope of work is, but I know that when our city engineer was on board, there was some work that was farmed out, and there was some work that he would do.
Is this big enough so that it would have been farmed out?
It would probably would.
More likely, okay, thank you.
Okay, for the questioning, we have the question for the city manager. City manager is going to appoint the employee, or himself going to answer this one. Please don't directly to deal with the employee. Okay, so now we can put it back here. So how are we going to do it? Do we have a motion to approve it, or the more questioning?
I'll move. I'll second.
Mr. Castro was a motion to approve, second by Mr. Moreno. Sorry.
Romero. Aye.
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 No.
Mr. Hurtado say no, the 4-1. Discussion and action on the council member Moreno's behavior. Number 7, I believe we have a person to talk, Mr. Benjamin Holton.
Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council, I don't know what's wrong. Maybe I have a ringing in my ear, but didn't we discuss this last meeting and put it to rest, or is this a continuing of what took place last meeting? Can you clarify that, Your Honor, Mayor? No response?
I already have a response last time. I don't have the response this time.
Well, then why do we have this on the agenda again? I thought we talked about it. We said that we want to work together. We just want to continue until we get what we want in the discussion. If this is the case, then there's something seriously wrong with the City Council as a whole. And maybe I'm hopeful this next election that comes around, we won't have this infighting going on. I'm really disappointed that we have all this going on in the city, and we need to solve financial deals, and this is something that's on the agenda again. I asked the mayor if I could have an explanation. He has nothing to say to me, and that tells me something about where we're at in reference to a community and a city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holton. Okay, number 7. Okay, we already had the last time discussion, but we didn't have a comment action item, so we put in the action item this time. And also, some public members, they said we are fighting. And we are not fighting. We need to conclude this one, because we've been using several times to one council member personal behavior to bring to the council to censor it. And even the council member Castro was saying the apology, and they didn't approve it. And 3 council members approved it, censoring that. This one is not the personal behavior. This one is we talk about it worldwide by the first Facebook. It's been posted. I understand Mr. Moreno was apologies, but everybody doing something, they can apologize. So I apologize. Let's get over. And seriously, this one is representing our city's face. That's why I need to take action to council members to what they're going to do it.
Well, let's take action. Call for the question.
Okay, so any council member with discussions?
I want to make a statement, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to apologize to the community for the actions of this council, past and present, even before I wasn't here. It's a great disgrace to you all, what has happened up here, and the way this council interacts with each other. I want to say that I myself have something to say to Councilman Castro, and that is that in the beginning, when I got elected, I was given a choice to censor him for some actions that he himself had done, and I took it upon myself to do that. And so I truly believe that right now, ever since Nick Finley became city manager, the council itself, at least us four that are up here now, John, we talk, right? Kim, me and you talk, we work together. Mr. Castro, we work together. I can't say that about the other council member that left because she doesn't talk to any of us, or the city manager for that matter. I don't know how that is going to take our city forward, what kind of leadership that is. But I'm gonna say I'm the youngest guy up here, and I think that some of you call me the kid, but I'm gonna be an adult about this right now, and I'm gonna say that this has to stop. This has to stop, and I myself am not going to make another mistake by censoring another council member. But I also ask for the council that for the next agenda, we rescind the censorship of Luis Castro, and we get away from this infighting and move forward. Because you guys, the citizens, the people, deserve a council that works together, at least four of us. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Real. So any council member? So what motion we gonna have it?
Well, let me mention something, Mr. Kim, Mayor Kim. Well, the words and the language that Mr. Moreno mentioned on Facebook, that hurts the Muslims, the Muslim people. And these people are adults. Adults can defend themselves. But the same message that Mr. Moreno put on Facebook hurt also the kids. The kids can't defend themselves. And that's one of the reasons I believe, and that's the way I think. I believe this community and the Muslim people don't deserve a public official like John Moreno.
We've talked about it 3 times.
Let me finish, Mr. Moreno.
I thought you've already finished.
Let me finish now. Basically, my point here is not only censor him. Again, what he did, he hurt millions of people. Millions. I strongly suggest to Mr. Moreno to apologize, but that's the way I think, to apologize on Facebook to these people. That's something that he needs to do it. If not, that's him. But again, what he did, there is no word for that. I strongly repeat, against the kids, That's very serious problem, and especially because he's a principal, he's an educator. That's something very bad for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. You have something to say?
I've already said what
Okay.
I'm going to say. I've already apologized. I've admitted it, which is a lot more than what Mr. Castro did when he was in a similar situation. And to deceive you by reading a letter that he wrote that he didn't write last time is just a travesty. So let's just move on. Let's vote on it, and let's move on.
Ms. Hurtado?
Let's build some parks. Let's go ahead and build a fire station, okay? Because actually, this is probably just a little OTT, which means over the top.
Thank you for your comments.
Can I say something?
Sure.
As far as going over the top, it's funny how,
I have a problem with the fact that if we're going to have two opportunities to speak about this kind of subject, maybe we should move on. We do have, if we all notice, there is no city business really on this agenda today. It's all about personalities, because now we're coming up to the next one. So let's build a park. Let's do some city business. Let's
call
move
for
on.
the question.
The subject here is Mr. Moreno. Mr. Moreno is asking that we move on. Go ahead and vote, and let's move on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hurtado. Okay, one of my intention was to put in the action item today. I'm thanking for Mr. Real. Finally, he's realizing that our council did wrong steps. And we should not fight each other, but we've been doing it, and we've been attacking. So now I want to use this case to end up our fighting. I offer to Mr. Castro as a mayor the apologies for what's been doing city council. We're gonna put in resend the censorship next meeting, and same time, if Mr. Moreno doesn't want to do it, I will put in the Facebook as a mayor apology to the world to what we're not doing any things to that, and let's work together.
Mr. Mayor, if you wanted to work together, if you really wanted to work together, you would have called him on the phone and asked him to do that. You had to bring it in front of the public, and that's where that needs to stop. And, if you want to work as a team, then talk to him. You didn't have to bring it here.
Well, Mr. Hurtado, you've been doing a lot of things openly to attack a lot of people, a lot of council members, even you doing today.
I think we can turn a corner here.
Yeah.
Mayor, I want to thank you for your leadership on this here. It shows some willingness to work together, which I think most of us, the majority up here, are working together a lot better than we have in the past. And let's move on.
Yeah, I want to use this case for the curing ourselves. I was bickering each other's. I like to stop this. That's why I put it on this one here. Mr. Castro, is it acceptable?
Of course.
We're gonna put in the agenda, next coming agenda, as a rescinding of censorship, and we're gonna keep on going to work together.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Castro. I think then I believe we don't have to vote it. So I believe we have agreed with among the council members to stop the biggerings. So let's work together. Thank you. The next items, number 8. Consideration by Council Member Real to remove his appointee on the Police Advisory Commissions.
I make a motion to appoint Juan Villarreal.
What?
We're not there yet. That's the next one.
Number 8.
Oh, number 9.
You're so exciting.
So much for not showing your cards, huh?
You must stay to here.
Okay.
You can't bluff anymore.
Okay, so Council
Yes,
Member
I am
Real.
removing my appointee for the Police Advisory Commission, Mr. James Beaver. And I would like to open the position. I can't appoint today, is that correct? I have to wait for the
2
opening,
weeks.
correct? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Well, we don't have to vote.
I know.
Okay, and number 9. Yeah, he will remove it. And open the positions. Number nine, appointment of general commissioners to the Calexico Housing Authority.
We
Again,
don't get to comment about that, huh?
I appoint Juan Villarreal for Housing Commission. That is my motion.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Moreno. Do we have a vote or discussion?
Aye.
You want to discuss?
So,
Go ahead.
okay.
You want to discuss?
You want to discuss or not? Then we're going to go vote.
You already voted. You already knew who you wanted.
Okay? Can you vote?
Sure.
Mr. Leal?
Aye.
Castro?
Aye.
Mr. Castro? Mr. Moreno?
Aye.
Mr. Hurtado? No? Okay. And I said no, 3-2. Let's pass. Okay, and future agenda items. Any council members have it?
I guess the meeting is over.
Okay.
I lost my train of thought. I'm fine.
Okay, Mr. Castro? Okay, I gonna put the parks conditions, all the parks conditions next agenda we can discuss, and how can we improve the parks conditions?
Actually, can we bring back the closure of Rockwood? What are we gonna, we need to figure out, that way we can lay that to rest or, see if, maybe, has anybody from the city gone to speak to the owners of the businesses there? How do we go about that to making sure that people are on board with something like that? Thank you. Public hearings maybe, or?
Well, then has to go to the public hearings process first.
To who?
Public pre-hearing process first. Okay, then we adjourn the meeting 8:56.
Mr. Mayor, actually, we're adjourning this to Tuesday at 9 a.m., Tuesday, March 8th to 9 a.m. to close session, so.
Oh, yeah, we have to announce again? The following Tuesday, 9 a.m., we're going to be closed session on the appointing of the city manager?